Try doing one thing right now. Take a breath and then exhale slowly. It seems trivial, right? But imagine, after that breath, that air never comes back. Not just for you, not just for one city, but for the entire planet. For 10 minutes, the Earth lost oxygen. Not partially, not slowly, but completely. There was no explosion. There was no loud noise. There was no countdown. But in a matter of seconds, the sky changed color. Fires around the world died down. Planes fell from the sky, and the human brain began to shut itself down. This is not fiction. This is not sci-fi theory. This is the scientific consequence of something we often take for granted: breathing. And this is what really happened when the world lost its breath. And it didn't start with chaos. There were no explosions, no screams. Instead, it began with perfect silence. No sirens, no warnings from the sky, no emergency messages on anyone's phones. The world was going on as usual. Children laughed in the park, cars drove on the highway, birds flitted between city buildings. The air felt normal. People breathed without thinking, because no one on this planet realized how precious a single breath was until it suddenly wasn't there. And then, in a moment invisible to the eye, the oxygen all over the Earth disappeared. Not less, not thinner, but gone, as if it had never existed. The first second felt strange. Some people reflexively took a deeper breath, but all that entered their lungs was empty space. There was no suffocating sensation like drowning in water. There was no dramatic tightness. There was just a false sense of lightness, like the body was missing something that should always be there. Inside the human body, a chain reaction immediately ensued. Red blood cells, which normally carry oxygen throughout the body, suddenly lost their charge. The brain, the organ most dependent on oxygen, began to run out of energy. Within seconds, its electrical signals weakened. Vision narrowed, colors faded. The world seemed to slip away. Some people remained standing, trying to comprehend what had gone wrong. But before a complete thought could form, their knees gave way. Bodies fell to the ground, not from injury or impact, but because the brain had cut off connections to survive. At the same time, the physical world changed. Air pressure dropped abruptly. About a fifth of Earth's atmosphere simply vanished. Ears rang violently, as if everyone had been suddenly transported to extreme altitudes without warning. In some, eardrums ruptured, causing pain that those who had already lost consciousness didn't even notice. The sky above the city changed slowly, but surely. The blue we've always known is not the sky's true color. It exists because sunlight is reflected and scattered by molecules in the air, particularly oxygen. When oxygen disappears, the sky loses its ability to scatter light. Daylight is no longer blue. Instead, it becomes dark, almost black, with the sun appearing as a dazzling white disk as seen from space. For the first time, daylight feels strange. Fires all over the world died out simultaneously. Kitchen stoves blazed and then went out. Candles in places of worship vanished without smoke. Forest fires stopped abruptly, leaving behind dead embers. There was no longer any flame, for fire cannot exist without oxygen. A silence spread not only because humans were silent, but because machines were also shut off. In the sky, planes began to lose power. Their combustion-dependent jet engines stopped working instantly. There was no explosion, no roar of engines. The metal wings slowly lost lift due to the change in air pressure. The planes glided down, silent, obeying the never-ending force of gravity. On land, tall buildings still stood, but they were no longer the same. Steel and metal, previously stable due to their chemical bonds with oxygen, began to lose their strength. They hadn't collapsed, not yet crumbled, but their structures were weakening from within, like bones suddenly becoming brittle. In the oceans, the water's surface vibrated strangely. Water molecules, stable as H2O for billions of years, began to lose their chemical balance. The bonds holding hydrogen and oxygen together weakened. Tiny bubbles rose from the ocean's surface, not because of the heat, but because the water's chemical foundations were being disrupted. Amidst all this change, life stilled. Birds fell from the air. Animals collapsed where they stood. Cities fell silent in less than a minute, not because they were asleep, but because the planet's collective consciousness was extinguished. The Earth was still spinning. The sun was still shining. Gravity was still working. But without oxygen, the world felt like a giant machine missing one tiny component, and the entire system began to fail. And this was just the first minute. The first minute has passed, and the world hasn't stopped changing. Without oxygen, everything that had been stable until now begins to show its true face. Not through a massive explosion, but through small failures that occur everywhere, then converge into a global collapse. Inside a human body lying unconscious, time becomes the enemy. Brain cells are not designed to survive without oxygen. Every passing second means the neural network dies bit by bit. After a few minutes, this damage is irreparable. Even if oxygen were to return, many of them would never wake up again. The heart still tries to beat, but without oxygen, its rhythm is chaotic. Vital organs lose coordination. Life isn't lost immediately, but is slowly extinguished from within. In major cities, the changes became more pronounced. Building structures began to succumb to the new laws of physics. Steel and iron, losing their chemical stability, didn't collapse all at once. They buckled, cracked, and then broke at points never designed to support the loads. Bridges began to crumble, not with a loud roar, but with gradual collapses that spread like a domino effect. Tall buildings that had once been symbols of human strength now stood like fragile skeletons. Some began to collapse in on themselves. Others toppled sideways, crashing into surrounding buildings, creating clouds of dust that rose into the air that no longer supported life. Under the sea, the changes were far more dramatic. Water wasn't just a liquid, it was the product of a very precise chemical balance. Without oxygen, that balance was disrupted. Water molecules began to decompose. Hydrogen, a very light and highly reactive element, was released in large quantities. Bubbles of gas rose from the seabed to the surface, creating an ocean that appeared to be boiling, even though its temperature remained unchanged. In some places, increased gas pressure caused plumes of water and gas to erupt, like giant geysers devoid of geothermal energy. The oceans, which had previously sustained life, became sources of chemical chaos. In an atmosphere now depleted of oxygen, the composition of the air changed drastically. Nitrogen became the dominant element without a balance. Air pressure fluctuated constantly, creating extreme winds that moved without pattern. Clouds lost their shape. Weather as we know it ceased. Earth entered a wild and unstable atmospheric state. Across vast expanses of land, forests fell silent. Plants didn't die immediately, but photosynthesis ceased completely. Leaves lost their primary function. Without oxygen and without the ability to produce energy, plant tissue began to degrade at the cellular level. The green forest slowly turned into silent landscapes, awaiting their own demise. Animals with limited oxygen reserves survived a little longer, but the end result was the same. Their bodies weren't designed for these conditions. Nervous systems failed. Muscles stopped responding. Wildlife collapsed almost simultaneously with human civilization. Meanwhile, in the sky, the remains of the crashed aircraft began to crash into the land and sea. Not with fiery explosions, for fire no longer existed, but with violent impacts that left new craters in the planet's surface. Satellites in low orbit continued to circle Earth, watching the blue planet slowly lose its features. Time continued to tick. Minute by minute, the damage increased, not exponentially, but irreversibly. No natural mechanism could halt this process, No human technology was designed to cope with a world without oxygen. At this point, even if oxygen were restored, the world would not return to normal. Collapsed structures could not stand on their own. Dead neural networks could not be reconnected. Collapsed ecosystems could not be quickly reassembled. Earth still exists. The planet hasn't been destroyed, but its face has changed. And time continues to lead to one final question. What happens when oxygen finally returns? 10 minutes had passed. There was no countdown. There was no sign from the sky. But across the planet, something long lost had returned. Oxygen slowly reappeared in the atmosphere, filling the empty spaces that had previously been filled with nothing but lifeless gas. Air molecules began to move as usual, as if trying to remember their old form. But the world they encountered was no longer the same. On land, the newly returned oxygen immediately encountered hydrogen gas released from the oceans and the Earth's surface. Under normal conditions, hydrogen and oxygen can coexist. But now, their concentrations were imbalanced. In many places, the two elements met in a highly reactive state. Small explosions erupted across the globe. Fires erupted from the ground, from the ruins of buildings, from the still roiling ocean surface. The previously silent world became a planet of spontaneous combustion, as if Earth were trying to reboot itself in the wrong way. In ruined cities, fires spread uncontrollably. There were no humans to extinguish them. No systems were functioning. The flames consumed the remains of civilization that had previously survived the collapse. Smoke filled the sky again, this time carrying toxic particles from burning metal and materials. In the air, the atmosphere struggled to stabilize. Oxygen was not evenly distributed. Air pressure fluctuated wildly. Strong winds swept across the continents, creating global storms that followed no weather patterns ever recorded in human history. Lightning strikes without rain. Clouds collide and shatter. The sky continues to shift, like a system being forced back into action after being shut down for too long. Amidst all this chaos, a small portion of humanity begins to breathe again. Some lungs regain air, some hearts regain their rhythm, but for many, the oxygen arrives too late. Brains deprived of oxygen for too long are unable to recover. Bodies may live, but consciousness never fully returns. Those who survive face a world barely recognizable. No electricity, no communications, no cities as they once were. Forests are destroyed, oceans are changing, food chains are collapsing. Species that depend on the delicate balance between air, water, and energy are disappearing forever. Mass extinctions happen not with a big bang, but with a long silence. The Earth continues to revolve around the Sunday. Days and nights continue to change. But human civilization, with all its technology, cities, and history, has ended in less time than it takes to watch a single movie. It will take hundreds, perhaps thousands of years for the atmosphere to truly stabilize. It will take even longer for life to find a new equilibrium. And if living things do one day dominate the planet again, they will live in a world shaped by a single brief event, 10 minutes without oxygen. In the end, oxygen never became the star of the human story. It was unseen, unheard, never celebrated. But without it, the laws of physics falter, chemistry collapses, and life ceases.